How far out are we? Through the 134, committing to the 5 freeway, staying on the northbound side of the 5 freeway, getting into the Burbank area now. Are they code 3? Oh, there they are. Yep. Looks like they may put this in tracking mode. Stand by. They're closing in on them. Look at this. 2 of them. What kind of Toyota is that, you know? $15 away. ICOM's getting a little scratchy. Okay. FM2 is good. That's right, Mark. CHP in hot pursuit northbound side of the 5 freeway started in Highland Park. CHP trying to pull the suspect over, wanted for speeding, and was really zipping through Highland Park at some really fast speeds, going through red lights very, very recklessly before ending up on the freeway. But before that happened, he actually was engaged with police. They tried to pit him. They basically attempted a pit maneuver. They turned him around, and he kept going in the opposite direction. They lost him for a little bit, ended up on the freeway. We caught him, helped them, guide them in here, and now you see that LAPD has their airship up overhead. That's where that night sun is coming from, and 2 CHP units right behind him. He's doing about 100 miles per hour northbound on the 5 freeway through Burbank right now, desperate to get away from these law enforcement officers. When he lost them for a little bit, getting onto the 5 freeway, they ended up on the southbound side. He quickly turned, made a northbound turn onto the 5, and was able to lose them temporarily, and that's when he started to try and blend in with the rest of traffic. Traffic is pretty light overall, but he absolutely feels the pressure. Now that he's got those units, code 3 with lights and sirens on, he is really pushing the pedal to the metal. It's a driver in his 20s behind the wheel of that Toyota right there in the number 2 lane, just really pushing it this evening, and is bound to get somebody hurt if he doesn't slow down. But I've got to say, overall, we'd much rather see him on the freeway at this point than on surface streets. The driving through Highland Park was really, really scary. Luckily, there was no cross traffic, nobody crossing the street. Otherwise, it would have been deadly. Now he's on the freeway again. Still very, very fast speeds. But they're going to close in on him here. There's talk of possibly putting this back into tracking mode, but as long as traffic remains this light, I think they're going to keep the pressure on. Mark? No collisions with the exception of that pit. They definitely made contact. He did a full 180 and ended up going the opposite way. But other than that, he has not hit anybody that we know of. We think that we flew over right as this pursuit was getting underway. We were coming from downtown when we caught that pit maneuver from a distance. We might be able to re-rack that tape down there. Let me know if you see it. But for right now, we have not seen any other collisions. Just a lot of close calls considering the speed that he was going through those red lights. He wasn't even attempting to brake. I mean, he was just flying through those streets. And like I said, a relief now to see him on the freeway. Well, he was wanted for speeding. That was the original attempt to pull him over, and then he failed to yield. But the driving, I think, has been so dangerous. They see an opportunity, especially after that pit maneuver, to try and get him off the road. And even now, as long as the traffic remains light, they can keep the pressure on without putting anybody else in danger. Now we're at the 170 split, where the 5 freeway meets the 170 coming out of Sun Valley, and there's a little more traffic getting onto the freeway here, so slightly more traffic up ahead as I look out the window. But overall, he's shown a very a clear willingness to just weave through anybody in his way. And Colleen brought up a really good point. Very unusual to see him so conscious about using his turn signals every time he changes lanes. Without fail, he is using his turn signals. So somebody taught him how to drive. But you can see he is just weaving through the traffic here. 2 units right behind him, and he still has that LAPD helicopter right overhead here as we make our way further in to the San Fernando Valley. A lot of times chases like this time of the night, one of the tricks is take this straight through Santa Clarita, hope you can make it that far, and if you end up in the Grapevine, well then you have a better chance. But we'll see what happens here. We still have a ways to wait before we get to that point. He's coming up on the 118 freeway in just a minute here, so that'll be his next opportunity to get off of the 5 freeway. That's Van Nuys Boulevard right there, and we still see those 2 units, those 2 CHP Explorers, I believe, keeping the pressure on. Yeah, not yet. You're exactly right. Now it's not only a speeding charge. Now it's assault with a deadly weapon, attempted assault on a law enforcement officer. That pit maneuver, that failed pit maneuver, really does change the game, especially as you mentioned, once he ended up head-to-head with those officers, with those black and whites, really just trying to get away, but in the process, ramming into them and continuing on. You're right about that. The charges are definitely stacking up against him, and that may play into their decision to pursue this as long as possible. Sorry, Mark, go ahead. Interestingly enough, we have a few miles before we get there, but there is some flashing lights up ahead, and it might be construction actually, or it could be a possible setup. Maybe they're going to transfer CHP divisions or possibly even get a spike strip ready if they have the opportunity up there. It could just be a construction zone. I'm looking way up towards the Newhall Pass is what I'm looking at here. So we've got a couple miles before we get there, and I can give you a better idea of what I'm looking at. But in between here and there, not a whole lot of traffic, and you can see he is committed to the 5 freeway now. He's passed the 405, he passed the 118, and is now committed to the 5 freeway here through Sylmar. It is terrifying when you see somebody coming up this fast behind you. Now we're coming up on that construction zone that I was talking about. It is indeed a construction zone. It's actually a closure. The ramp to the 210 freeway is actually shut down for construction. So he's going to bypass the 210 freeway, stay on the 5 freeway, and he's going to pass possibly some construction vehicles, definitely some CHP units with the road closed. We just passed that split. And so now he is indeed going through the Newhall Pass. So northbound side of the 5 freeway through the Newhall Pass, 90 miles per hour, between 90 and 100. Still just those 2 CHP units right behind him. And fortunately, we made it through that construction zone without incident there. And you can see traffic is getting a little bit lighter now as we approach the Santa Clarita Valley. It looked like they lost ICOM. So he'll have a decision here whether to stay on the 5 freeway or commit to the 14 freeway. Actually, looks like he's staying on the 5, so bypassing the 14, staying on the 5 freeway, and that'll bring him squarely into Santa Clarita here in just a second. Yeah, he actually, I think, is in the truck lane, by the way. I think he's in the truck lanes, and we have another CHP unit now joining the pursuit. So we now have a primary unit, a secondary unit, and a third unit right behind him here. So a full team of law enforcement officers chasing him from on the ground there, and then that LAPD helicopter sticking with it from up above here. So we should be coming up on the old road here in just a second, and then a little further up we'll be in Santa Clarita. Yeah, and the thing about Highland Park is some of those roads are really windy, and he was taking those turns at some points almost fishtailing. Didn't quite lose control, but he was blowing through probably upwards of about a dozen red lights. And like I said, all of those intersections, thankfully, were completely empty. Nobody crossing the street, no cross traffic, but it definitely, my heart definitely skipped a beat. It was a relief, like I said, to see him get on the freeway. But still, look at the speeds. Upwards of 105 to 110 miles per hour. We don't know whether there's anybody else inside the vehicle. Clearly, you can see those windows are pretty heavily tinted. It is a newer model Toyota, it looks like. We know there's a male in his 20s behind the wheel, and they may be setting up ahead here for a spike if he gets off the freeway, but they are communicating and trying to coordinate that. So we'll see if he decides to stay on the freeway. But right now, he's all the way over to the left there almost and showing no signs of getting off. Yeah, one of the most, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, one of the most challenging parts in a chase like this, there's some simplicity to it when there's not a lot of traffic. It's a freeway pursuit, and the options, as you mentioned, Colleen, are indeed limited. You would never expect to see a pit maneuver whatsoever on the freeway. Very, very rare. Spike strips, on the other hand, if he comes into a narrower part of the freeway and is doing maybe in the 60 to 70 range, upwards of maybe 75 miles per hour, and it's a convenient enough spot, sometimes they'll set up for a spike strip, but those are very, very difficult. But that's about the speed threshold for a spike strip. Other than that, though, at these speeds, it's just a matter of letting him use up as much gas as possible. Time is on the side of these law enforcement officers. It always is, but in this case, especially at this time of the night, with a wide open freeway coming up, the further north we get, it becomes darker and much more desolate, and the traffic becomes much less. And it really is just a waiting game until he runs out of gas, because LAP, or I should say the California Highway Patrol, has plenty of units that are ready to take over this pursuit. The biggest challenge here is keeping the adrenaline under control, and that goes for both the pursuit officers behind him and, of course, trying to manage his adrenaline as well. The driver behind the wheel is definitely affected by these officers that are right behind him, right? I'm sorry, I'm losing ICOM again. I got you. And so if they close in on him and they see him push the pedal to the metal and he starts to floor it, you saw the swap there. Did you see the swap? They just swapped that primary unit out with that secondary unit. That secondary unit, who's been following behind, has a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? It gives the opportunity, gives the primary unit an opportunity to take it easy, take a step back. He'll take over from here, and they can continue to do this dance as they continue up the Grapevine with additional CHP offices all the way up the state. So, I mean, you can hit the 5 freeway all the way up to Sacramento, and as long as he's got the gas for it, they could just continue the chase. Exactly right. Where's that? That's exactly right. And they're going to continue that swap out as long as they need to. But as long as he's doing these speeds, I mean, it's a compact Toyota. The gas mileage is going to start to catch up with him at some point. He's going to start to slow down and eventually run out of gas. I mean, at that speed, if he continues upwards of 100 to 110 miles per hour, that kind of vehicle is definitely going to start to experience some loss of fuel. So we'll see how long it goes. We're coming up on the edge of Castaic, and it's always a frustrating situation for us up here in Air 7 when we get to this part of the Santa Clarita Valley, because past Castaic, you're in the mountains, it's pitch black up there, and it becomes a little bit of a safety issue for us to continue following him. Where, of course, we have our extreme vision, so we can keep the camera on him for a little while longer. But what happens is, without night vision, we kind of have to start watching from a distance. You'll start to see him kind of drive away from us, and we'll see what happens here with LAPD. Some of those units are equipped with night vision, and some of them aren't. Some of those air units, those air support helicopters, do have night vision capabilities, some of them. So we'll see if they have the ability to keep that helicopter overhead. Again, that's LAPD that's been assisting the CHP this whole time. They may send in a CHP helicopter to take over. In fact, that has taken place. So California Highway Patrol has now taken this over from the air. LAPD is now heading back to LA proper, and you have those four CHP units right behind him. You can see that's the 5 freeway going up the Grapevine. Yeah. You called it. Yep, you called it. Yep, yep. Oh, that would have been cool too. Another mile or two, I think we'll do the best we can, but another mile or two, he's gonna disappear. Maybe 2 or 3 miles. Copy. Sounds good. Yeah. Looks good. Yeah, keep that. Copy. Okay. Yep. Copy. Nice. I know. I know. I know. Well, if you are watching online, we've continued on with our Eyewitness News at 11 p.m. newscast, and now as that driver of that pursuit vehicle continues up the Grapevine, they're on the 5 freeway. You can see now squarely up in the mountains now, and additional CHP units joining the pursuit. We might catch one more glimpse of him before he is off into the night, and for now that will just about conclude our coverage of this pursuit. Again, a high-speed pursuit out of Highland Park. CHP with their hands full with this one. Fortunately though, nobody hurt after a failed pit maneuver. Ended up on the freeway through the San Fernando Valley, through the Santa Clarita Valley, and there you see all the way up the 5 freeway. Thanks for joining us on ABC7.com and our ABC7 streaming apps. Reporting live from Air 7 HD, I'm Chris Christie, ABC7 Eyewitness News.